Montreal to be is French, as Toronto is English.
Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon said,
I'm proposing a referendum, and the first mandate that we get.
Denis Julien and Jocelyn Rivard have been PQ members for years.
On va sûrement l'écouter, mais
They're planning to watch the first virtual debate. They like both Frédéric Bastien and Guy Nantel, but they believe Nantel has more charisma.
et on pense que Nantel est mieux placé pour ça.
PQ members and supporters will be able to vote for the new PQ leaders starting on October 5th. Cathy Sonnet, CBC News, Quebec City.
An off-duty Montreal police officer who rammed another man's car in a road rage incident will not face discipline. The Police Ethics Commission has rejected a complaint against Roberto Tomarelli. Steve Rukavina has that.
In January 2015, Jeffrey Pecora was driving in LaSalle when he noticed a car he thought was driving dangerously. Pecora followed the car to a driveway and confronted the driver. That driver was off-duty police officer Roberto Tomarelli. Tomarelli was furious, and he ended up ramming his vehicle into Pecora's. Both men called 911, but it was Pecora who was charged with uttering threats and harassment. In 2017, he was cleared on all charges. The judge in the case said Tomarelli was negligent, reckless, and had used unwarranted force. Pecora filed a complaint with the Police Ethics Commission 3 times before it agreed to investigate. Earlier this week, the Ethics Commission Tribunal rejected Pecora's complaint, saying it doesn't have jurisdiction because Tomarelli was off duty at the time. Pecora had presented 911 tapes showing Tomarelli identified himself as an officer, gave his badge number, and requested backup. He felt that meant Tomarelli was acting as a police officer, but the tribunal disagreed.
I was completely dumbfounded. It felt like a big slap in the face.
Pecora also filed a criminal complaint, but prosecutors refused to lay charges. He filed a lawsuit against Tomarelli in the city, but a judge ruled the incident was a car accident that should be handled by the Automobile Insurance Board. Steve Rukavina, CBC News, Montreal.
And finally, a search is underway for a 5-year-old child in the Grand Jardin dans Charlevoix Park. Police have been searching since 1 o'clock this afternoon when parents lost sight of the child. Dozens of officers are at the scene carrying out a search in a heavily wooded area. And that was the CBC News for Quebec.
Thank you very much, Joanne. That is Joanne Bailey from the CBC Montreal Newsroom. Hello there, good afternoon. I'm Sabrina Marandola. Great to have you with us here on Let's Go, and a warm welcome to everyone outside of Montreal, right across the province as we broadcast to the province for this week. Breakaway will be back on Monday. Still to come on the program, we're going to be talking about farming, and imagine growing a crop, any crop you wanted, regardless of what the weather was outside. So even in our snowy -30 weather, maybe growing strawberries, for example. We'll talk about that coming up, and we'll touch base with the Quebec Contemporary Music Society. They have an education program where they go into schools to work on children in music classes and work with them to learn new repertoire and then have a big concert at the end of the year. Well, some form of that program will still be going on. Still a lot of questions because A, we don't even know if music classes will be going on, and B, will they be allowed in schools? So lots to come, but they have a plan to still make this go virtual and still happen to keep children learning music. So we'll talk about that as well. Right now it's 38 minutes past 5 o'clock. Akil, give us a look at the roads.
On the 40 East, right before the exit from St. Jean Boulevard, it looks like there's a car that's stalled on the right shoulder, so the SQ is on site, keeping an eye on that to see if that does translate into a road closure or a lane closure. On the Ville-Marie Expressway East, at the beginning of the exit, or rather inside the tunnel at the beginning of the exit to Saint Laurent, in Berry Street, there's a car that's broken down, and so the right lane is blocked, but no major traffic volume there. What we are seeing, again, still, is some high volume on the 15 South from LaSalle Boulevard down to Nuns Island, but lighter than before. All the major bridges themselves are clear, and if we look further east, we're still seeing mostly heavy traffic on the South Shore in Boucherville on the 20 West. The Jean Lesage Highway heading toward Montreal from Boulevard de Montalville up to the La Fontaine Tunnel, but it turns into somewhat higher speed, high volume traffic through the tunnel itself and up 25 North, almost all the way up to the 4th.
It's 18 degrees in Montreal right now. Still windy, wind gusts up to 40 kilometers an hour.
Density is much greater than greenhouses.
So we're able to produce at a affordable price all kinds of produce, so strawberry being the first one.
And when I hear you describe this, the image, or what I know that immediately pops to mind for me is, let's say, the biodome, where you're recreating a climate, of your own, where the plants and animals thrive there. What kind of weather conditions can you recreate exactly?
Well, it's a good one. I mean, we can recreate pretty much anything we want. We use regular air conditioning or refrigeration systems. So you're able, for strawberries, as an example, we are able to go from 22 degrees during the day to 10 degrees during the night, 75 degrees percentage humidity to 90% humidity at night. And these kinds of conditions are pretty adequate for a bunch of produce.
Okay, so temperature, humidity, and you can choose what you set that at.
And CO2 levels, lighting intensity, irrigation, fertilization. We're growing those produce, strawberries, as an example, inside a regular topsoil. So we're looking at very straightforward things that all gardeners or all farmers are using today. We're not reinventing, the basic principles of how to grow strawberries or lettuce or kale or all these kinds of things.
Okay, so everything's grown the same way. Can you describe what it looks like? Would it look like a greenhouse, let's say?
Well, in a greenhouse, you would have gutters. You would have gutters filled with topsoil in which you're going to plant stuff. Or you can have pots, like tomatoes or cucumbers would grow inside pots. In our case, we have gutters, the same as greenhouses, inside which you have the topsoil. But the difference is that we can superimpose multiple gutters on top of each other. We are implementing a farm in Vaudreuil, west of Montreal, and in there you have 18 feet high walls of strawberries gutters on top of one another. So you have like 16 gutters on top. So instead of having only one, like you would have in a greenhouse, because the sun has to reach the gutter, you can have as many as you want, because actually the sun is in front of the gutter.
Yeah, and you program it to how much light you want, and you decide, how much brightness it gets and so forth. So what prompted you, what motivated you to come up with something like this?
Several things. First, as you were describing, I mean, having some kind of food sovereignty or having some kind of a good quality produce or product like strawberries during the winter time is a critical element to our decision. Another one was the demand. I mean, it's clear that we were able to quickly sign long-term contracts with the Sobeys. Everybody is interested for that. And the price point, just looking at the price of this year's strawberries during the summertime, having the same price points during the winter time would be great. So that's the goal that we're achieving, is having an affordable produce for that, and the volume is huge. The volume for fruit like strawberries is significant. So the margins are good. And also the support from the government. I mean, we started this 2 years ago, and clearly when we presented the project to the government, it was clear that the interest of building a network of farms able to produce during the winter season is extending from 4 to 5 months of production during the summertime to 12 months was a critical component. You can imagine from an economical standpoint, the level of business, the level of jobs you can create, the level of autonomy for all those regions. And of course, this all comes with Hydro-Quebec being, a very affordable source of energy.
And Yves, so what's your background? Are you, an engineering and tech expert, or are you a farmer?
Actually, it's a good question. I was born on the farm, so I spent my childhood with greenhouses and food and stuff. But I did polytechnical school, so I'm an engineer and did technology for 25 years. So it's a mixture of the two. The first 25 years of my life with the second half in technology.
Oh, there you go. So you grew up on a farm, and I guess they say you can't take the farm out of the boys. So that has stayed with you, and you know exactly how all of these things grow and work and what they need. What have you heard from farmers about this, Yves?
Well, as I was pointing out, we are launching the farm, the first industrial production in Vaudreuil, at Vaudreuil, and we're going to have this as a first setup, but we are putting together about a dozen other growers that will be deploying next summer. So because we have to reach the quantity that we have committed to, which is several tons a week of strawberries, just to convert a tiny percentage of our imports. We're importing like 100 million kilos a year. It's like, man. So just replacing 10% of that would be already a great achievement. That's going to take a couple of years.
And I know you mentioned, strawberries as an example, and that's something you've tried already, but essentially, I guess you can grow any kind of a fruit or vegetable, right?
So, the design of the system, the LEDs, the lights that we're using inside a vertical farming production is actually fairly huge, meaning that 1,000 square feet will dissipate like 75 kilowatts. So realize that in Montreal, we're just dissipating like 850 kilowatts. This amount of energy is actually now used to actually heat up the greenhouse, because the vertical farming is installed inside a greenhouse. So even though it's a very fully closed environment, we're installing the vertical farming production inside a greenhouse. We're using the heat dissipated by the vertical farming to heat up 3 times the size of the vertical farming space, meaning that 10,000 square feet of vertical farming production can heat up a 40,000 square feet greenhouse plant during the winter season, removing the use of fossil fuel. So really improving the ability to grow all kinds of vegetables, not only on the vertical side, but also on the greenhouse side.
And Yves, I'm curious, as someone who grew up on a farm as a little boy, when you first, came up with this idea and mentioned it to people around you, what did they say? Did they think you were crazy?
Not really. All they would say is that a lot of people have tried it. What makes it different? Well, the difference is essentially we're using regular agronomy parameters. We're not reinventing the way you grow stuff. All we are actually doing is controlling the climate. Secondly, we actually are implementing our farms with growers. We're not implementing our farms in a warehouse in somewhere in an abandoned building or something. We're using farmer expertise. We're using farmer existing infrastructure. So the cost to produce and the business for farmers is actually a critical element in our approach to the business. And that's why the government was so supportive of it, because there are hundreds of farmers today that are starving, are getting very hard. This summer is very bad for those guys, right?
Yeah, and the weather's been quite the challenge as well. We've seen hay shortages and shortages of many other crops as well.
Yeah, exactly. So realize that now, instead of working like 4 or 5 months in a year, they're going to be able to amortize their entire infrastructure over 12 months. So on one hand. Secondly, also, they can now propose to workers, Quebec workers or Canadian workers, steady jobs, permanent jobs, not seasonal jobs. So, there was a bunch of reasons why, our solution makes a lot of sense. And that's why Investissement Quebec invested. 18 months ago, they committed a significant amount of money just to start the project, and also committed for a major investment round to deploy the farms. So this is where we are today.
And so it's really like an extension of farms that are already out there, an extension of the existing infrastructure and demand. I mean, we hear so often, eat local, eat local. So demand there from Quebecers as well to eat things grown by their own farmers. Yves Daou, thanks so much for this. Looking forward to what you do next and what the future of the winter farms are. Thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
That is Yves Daou, the founder of the winter farm, Ferme d'Hiver. Let us know your thoughts, 514-566-9066. And we do have an update here, some breaking news this afternoon, and an update from a story that Joanne Bailey brought us during the newscast. Good news for that child who was lost in the Grand Jardin Provincial Park in the Charlevoix. That child has now...
There's a car that's broken down with the center lane blocked. And on the EXO commuter rail network, the Mont-Saint-Hilaire line, train 816, that's the 520 train leaving Central Station, is running a bit behind schedule with slower service from Longueuil-Saint-Hubert Station onward. just some blockages in the metropolitan area, really the Turcotte interchange for tonight and the night after. The ramp leading from the 15 south to the 20 east will be closed from tonight at 9 until tomorrow morning at 5. And then the ramp leading from the 20 east, really on the 20 going all the way through the Turcotte, will be closed from tonight at 9 until tomorrow at 5. Same thing for the ramp leading from the 20 west to the 15 north.
Coming up, the Quebec Contemporary Music Society. By the Université de Montréal Youth Choir. The Quebec Contemporary Music Society hopes hundreds of children will be singing a new version of that song very soon. This is all part of the Music Society's yearly education program with schools. And Claire Kavanaugh is the Director of Communications and Education of the Music Society, and she joins us now on the line. Claire, good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Yes, hello Sabrina.
You do this every year. How does this education program usually work?
Well, every year we have a featured composer. Our mission is really to get people in general to know Quebec composers, and in schools we have a whole bunch of projects. And this year is a little bit different because we're not sure exactly how the situation is going to be in schools. So we decided to do a really inclusive, large project. So we have this Au Regard des Solstices, which is a beautiful piece that composer François-Hugues Leclerc composed in 2016. And it's pretty neat because it's made up of 4 canons. So what we just heard is the canon of fall, so autumn, but there's one for each season. So there's autumn, winter, spring, and summer.
Okay.
And so we're inviting all kids to sing these songs, and he's going to add some more canons. So there's going to be 8 canons to sing this year.
And normally, the way this works, I guess the reason why you say you're not sure exactly how it'll work is because normally somebody like François Leclerc would go into the classroom, would go to the schools to meet the music students and kind of give a little lesson there. So how is this going to work this year with COVID-19? I mean, it's still...
It actually started last spring when we had a big choir project. We had 300 kids that were supposed to come and sing a song at Complexe des Jardins. And because of COVID-19, we had to rethink the project. And we did a virtual choir. So we invited all the kids to sing at home and send us their videos, and we did a virtual choir with all that, and it worked really well. The kids put a lot of heart into their videos, and we got more than 300 videos. And
wow, that must be some editing project there.
Oh yes, our editors had fun with that. And we also